so that the two correlate. We originally had gone with 5 years and older, and the governor has it 2 years and older. So we're going to make that modification. We had a person call complaining about medical, so we've added a medical exemption statement to it, and then the state is fining $300 where we were originally fining $100. So those three small changes will be incorporated so that we align with the state's requirement. But other than that, no more changes.
Excellent. Thank you, Bruce. I see Sue has joined us. That's excellent. So we got the full group together now. So beyond that, so daily we're meeting with our local action committee. I'm just going to unmute you there, Sue. So each day we're updating each other on what's going on. All the departments are meeting and outlining our pressing issues. So that's assisting us in developing this plan that's going to be the meat of this discussion here. Is Mark with you guys, Dan and Cindy?
Yes, yep.
Mark, anything you want to update us on for the moment?
As of right now, everything's going well with the daily updates. Looking forward to this committee getting some applications to open from businesses. So if that can be done, we'll bring that up at the 9 o'clock and the 10 o'clock.
Excellent. Yeah, I think that's going to be important to coordinate closely with all the different departments and boards. Excellent. So the meat of the discussion today is really this draft economic recovery plan, and really how do we work through the government framework to get our businesses up and running when the time allows. So what I'm going to do is share my screen here to bring up that document. Hopefully everyone can see it. Everyone see it okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Excellent. All right, so this is the basic document that we're working through. It's a living document, so you know, it's as of right now, but actually it's as of 2 days ago because we got to add the governor's order for face masks already. So it's going to continue to evolve, and I think this is important to nail down first. And then once we have this nailed down, then we can really start engaging the business community, and we're open to get that, you know, today. The basics of this document. So I'll go over quickly the introduction. Then we'll dive into I'll just skim over the understanding of our regulatory framework that we're dealing with. And then it's how are we going to respond? What's our framework? And then the appendix, or the ever-growing appendix of all the different orders and documents and programs that are out there. So this committee was formed by the selectmen in response to the governor's order and orders and extended orders. And this committee's tasked at really looking at how to open our local economy safely. There's a lot of guidance out there, a lot of programs out there, but I think we want to look at it from the local level, and you know, we have a lot of boards, expertise, and committees that that know our businesses well, and I think we can move forward in a very smart, safe manner if we coordinate closely. So the 4 key components to the task at hand: communication, so dealing with our business community closely. You know, talking about how they can open up safely and what their needs are. Education, obviously, it's you know, we're all being educated daily on what this pandemic is, what we're all experiencing through this pandemic, but also how we can, you know, how there is some light at the end of the tunnel, hopefully. And then planning logistics. I think the town has been actively pursuing solid planning between the local action committee and all the different boards to really get on top of this. I mean, this committee was established essentially 2.5 weeks ago when the governor just put together something last week. So I commend, you know, all the boards for thinking and acting quickly. And then financing. Unfortunately, this isn't financing from the town. There's, you know, we have our hard times as well, but there is financing available through federal and state programs. I'll gloss over a state program that we came across, and I think, you know, we'll keep our eyes open for any opportunities and communicate and educate the business community on opportunities there. And again, as I'm going through this, if there's any questions, concerns, anything like that from the committee, please feel free to stop me. For the general public, Dan, I think the thought is we'll go over everything and then open it up for public comment after.
Correct, yep.
Excellent. All right, so glossing over to the understanding of the regulatory framework. So this is a two-tier process, as it is typically the federal government, the state government, and our local municipality. The federal government provided a number of advisories, guidelines to the municipalities on how to proceed appropriately, coming from the CDC and others. And you know, these key concepts are really in our best interest to strategically, you know, open up when the time is right. So I'll just touch on a couple of these. The slow transmission of the disease, you know, think strategically on how we're going to be able to slow this and eventually eradicate this, hopefully. Emphasize individual responsibility. I think the governor has said that with the mask order, that's our individual responsibility, and I think the Board of Health, you know, has touched on that as well. And tailor strategies to the target population. I think that's really key for the municipality, because as we've seen, as we've stressed and had our concerns about the blanket approach of statewide, I think you know, from the municipality and our local leaders, we can really tailor this to target certain businesses and certain populations to do this correctly. The state framework is a little more detailed. It gives us some matter-of-fact guidance, some things we can do, some things we can't do. And that is, again, that's evolving over time. So the main one comes from the first executive order here, Order 13, that really talks about essential businesses. So there's a whole list of essential businesses, and I provided this further on, and we'll go over that real quick. But it's 15 pages of essential businesses right now, and that, again, that's evolving over time. So the first section is maintaining operation of essential businesses. So it really spells out exactly who can continue to operate as an essential business. It spells out that restaurants and bars cannot actively stay open for food service on site, but it does encourage to continue to offer food and beverages for takeout and delivery. So that on site obviously is something critical that I'm sure we'll get into, that we'll be waiting eagerly for the governor to lift, so that there is some opportunities, again, for safe operation. It's not going to be just turning back the time and say, you know, we're back to full capacity, but there might be some creative opportunities there, and we'll get into that. So then there's, sorry. Yep.
Just as far as maintaining operation of essential services, what's outlined in this document is going to basically kind of be the template we use for businesses to open in town, even if it's the gray areas one. So, you know, how essential businesses are instructed to operate during this time. If businesses are opening, they're going to have the minimum standards of those safe standards, correct?
That's right. That's right. That's going to be critical too. So even if you're an essential business, there's going to be some tweaks and changes that you're going to have to do as well to maintain safe social distancing. And I think what we'll get to shortly here is the enforcement aspect of it. And I say enforcement, but it's really a collaboration, working with the town to open up properly. So we'll have a team that's going to be able to go out and assist and work with each individual business. So it's going to be the essentials, those who potentially can open right now, and those who are gearing up and waiting to get that lift from the governor, so that we can plan now for, you know, your green light on day one. So we'll get into that shortly here. So there's the temporary closing of all other businesses. So if you're strictly prohibited, you know, if you've been expressly stated as prohibited, unfortunately, you know, we're waiting eagerly for the governor's lift. Limitations of gatherings. So this has been in place for some time now, 10 or more people. So here it states the defined essential businesses. We have this link on our town website. We'll make it more clear for individuals who want to see that essential list. It's important that it's a link. This, I put it in here as it just keeps scrolling and scrolling for 15 pages here. These are all the essential categories that are allowed to continue to operate and are essential. So once we get to the bottom here, you'll note that, so this list will be added to weekly. So again, the state will receive some of these new requests to be open as essential. And so that's where these additional categories came in and keep coming in. So we'll keep looking at that and updating it accordingly. So, that's the federal and state, and now at the local level. So our understanding of the order from the governor by the town of Bellingham is that if you are not expressly listed as essential on the list above, then you must either send a request to the state or appeal to the local board of health through the chief executive to confirm your business falls into one of these categories if you wish to reopen. So this is supported by the governor's guidance on local authority amid the COVID-19, and that's one of the appendix here. So it expressly states that when the governor first established the essential services order on March 23rd, 2020, he stated that enforcement would be handled primarily at the local level. So therefore, mayors, city managers, town administrators have the authority to make enforcement decisions necessary to carry out this order in their respective municipality. So how we've maintained that is looking at that. The town administrator in the town of Bellingham works for the Board of Selectmen. So in collaboration, those entities will be looking at how do we deal with essential services, and that's how this subcommittee was born. That in collaboration with the Board of Health, which is expressly stated later on as dealing with the health and safety aspect as it always may be. So therefore, we really, the task at hand now is to design a clear and consistent process for when we can reopen businesses as the governor's order is amended and hopefully at some point is lifted. So before I dive into that, I know that's a lot of administrative stuff. Is there any questions, comments yet?
Yeah, Jerry, can you clarify what would be the red, green, and gray areas?
Yeah, and so I actually, Bill, if you don't mind, you're stealing my thunder. That's the next page.
Okay.
All right, so 1 second. So direct engagement. So the first step of our local plan here is first direct engagement. So back to those 4 pillars. Communication is key. So direct engagement with our community. Luckily, I think we have good active relationships with much of the business community. So continuing on that, understanding what their needs are and how we can help. So we've launched, with Karen's help, we've launched a website for the subcommittee. So on the town's website, under boards and committees, we now have a subcommittee. The subcommittee, obviously the Economic Development Subcommittee. We also have an email address that is live as of today, covid19business@bellingham.org. So that's the main 2 ways you can send your requests, concerns, needs, and we're going to do everything we can to assist you. I think the next step is to develop a questionnaire. That questionnaire is, again, it's going to be kind of a tag team approach here from the town and the business community. How can we help, and how can you help us get this town up and running and reopening? Thinking strategically about different regulations that might be that boards and committees could assist with, and maybe providing a little relief. Those different things. Also, if there's any concerns about funding. If there's financial assistance out there that you're having a hard time with, obviously we have close relationships with our state rep and state senator. So, certainly reach out to us. Obviously staff's available. I think Dennis Frayne has made it clear that, all hands on deck. So, as this evolves, I think we'll be adding more and more staff or not adding, but utilizing the staff that we have to assist in this process. So it's myself, obviously Mark Poirier, Deputy Fire Chief, has been leading the charge. Bruce Wilson, our Board of Health agent's been leading the charge. Tim Icardi, our building inspector. Police, other fire, et cetera. As the needs arise, I think we found that that we have a good team on hand to take charge there. So lastly, for communications, identifying grants and financial assistance, we've submitted an application for the small business grant program to the Attorney General's office. We're waiting to hear back. I know our state rep is pushing that. So if there is opportunities there, we're going to jump on it immediately. The next is really where we got to head next. So this is how do we appropriately reopen Bellingham businesses, and this is the application process. And I developed the options based on our last meeting, discussing all the different avenues and what we could do here. So we developed the stoplight approach with a great recommendation from one of our committee members, Bill. The stoplight approach, I think, makes it very clear here. Green light, that means you're an essential business, right? So you can go ahead and continue to operate, but we're going to still need to discuss safe operations, and that's where our staff is going to come in handy on and working with everyone to make sure that there's separation, capacity is appropriate, PPEs being worn to the appropriate levels, et cetera. As it all develops, we'll need all the different expertise on hand. Yellow light, obviously, is proceed with caution. So this is really the gray area. This is where there might be some ability to work with businesses to get them open sooner rather than later, if they are potentially under one of those categories that are above the 15 pages that we scrolled through. So if you think there's an opportunity that you think you might be X, but you previously were Y, if there's an opportunity to open up under a limited capacity to do a certain type of activity that would fall under essential businesses, I think we want to hear from you. So there's 3 different avenues, and I think that if we could, the committee, I know, wanted to discuss this last time, so I put it down on paper to see what it would look like. I'll go through these 3 options, and then maybe we have a discussion about how we would like to proceed with those, or which one of those 3 options.
I like option 3.
Yep.
I like option 3.
Option 3. I knew you would say that. So first option is the state defined option, and what that means is they have an email address on their town or on their state website that says, if you think you are an essential business, please send your business here. You outline what you're looking to do, and we'll get back to you. And so how that would work, how that would function locally, is that you would get your approval from the state. You would provide that to us to say that you've been approved. And, again, you would work with our team to make sure you're opening safely. But that would be just the state's call as to whether or not they believe that you are deemed essential. The second option has multiple layers, but it does have some local support and some local direction. So what this does is it's a 2-tier process of you, once again, are going to be submitting to the state, but first you send it to this team here, this subcommittee. We'll turn it around ASAP to decide whether or not we believe that you are in one of those categories. What we do is we could draft you a support letter that goes in with your file that gets sent to the state. That then the state reviews it, understands that there's a letter from the towns recommending support of this, and potentially that would garner some additional support in reopening, since all the rhetoric from the state is that the local officials have a good understanding of what the needs are on the ground. The third option is the local option only. So the state does expressly state that that businesses not expressly covered under essential orders and accompanying guidance but believes their business may fall in the essential category, a designation request can be made to the Board of Health. So that's through all the guidance. The Board of Health is the local official for the designation of safe operations, like I mentioned earlier. So, you know, a submission could come to this committee, who would then offer their support or not offer support to the Board of Health, who would make that final determination. Then it would have to be, again, just like all others, you would file with a business certificate with the town clerk, as for every business. And then our team, again, would be going out there to make sure that you're operating safely. So before I move on, is there any comments, suggestions about one of those three options?
So option 3, we can't do anything with it until we get the form.
That's correct.
Right, so yeah, so like an application form, you mean?
Yep.
Yeah, so for any of the, or for 1 or 2 or 3, well, actually for all 3 of them, for essential businesses included, form is going to need to be developed. We've started to draft that, and I, you know, honestly, if as soon as this committee gives me the green light to go, you know, I'll get that done today. Yeah, so the application, don't worry about the application.
Go, yeah.
Done quickly.
Is it not complicated?
Exactly. We're going to try and make it limited in complications, but providing enough information to, you know, for this committee to make an educated decision.
So they won't have to do anything with a state application if they fill this out.
As long as we adopt option 3.
Okay.
But yeah, and I will
Like
remind
when
you,
we
though, so
adopt them.
option 3 would be, they would have to fall in some category of the essential businesses. So it likely isn't going to be a business in full capacity that's closed today, because they've understood that they may not be, they're not an essential business. But for instance, I know we always use like, for instance, a flower shop. So a flower shop is strictly stated as prohibited, but if it's only for e-commerce, if you're only selling online or something like that, maybe you could find yourself under an essential business as e-commerce, and this board with the recommendation could move forward in that direction. So that's potential, but again, it's not going to give you the full breadth of just opening up any business. Yep.
Right. So,
Something to number 3.
what was that, Paul?
Can I add something to number 3?
You can ask.
So thank you, Dan, I appreciate that. I'd like to see the application go to the state.
No.
Can you let me finish, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
That would be option 1.
If for some reason down the road they get back to us and they say no, what do we do? I don't want to agitate the governor.
Well, under the Attorney General's guidance, again, what was outlined with the prior document was that the enforcement is going to be based on the municipalities. Additionally, with that guidance was a question was asked: is can the governor override a municipality's decision? And the answer was yes. However, that shouldn't prohibit the municipality from making a decision, because the governor is aware that the municipality knows what's best for its own area. So basically, if we open something that the governor says shouldn't be opened, and he comes down and says to close it, then I guess we have to close it. For instance, if we decide to open a golf course tomorrow, where the governor explicitly said no golf courses, then he would come down and close. You know, we'd be instructed to close it. That being said, if we're opening up businesses, and I guess for lack of a better term, we're not doing it in the face of the governor. We're not grandstanding. We're not calling in Fox 25 to come down and say, oh, look at us, we opened a florist. I really don't think that there's going to be any kind of Commonwealth or statewide enforcement coming down on us. That being said, if it does, we justify that we opened it because of, we deemed that it fit this clause or this part of the essential business list. And that was what our thinking was, and that's what the municipality decided. We're not going to just, you know, I'm not going to open up a restaurant and say it was, you know, it fit under the healthcare exemptions as far as opening. But that being said, I hate the term essential versus non-essential, because as I said before, I would like the people who put this list together to come down and talk to a small business that's been in business for 30 years and now is on the precipice of going under, and tell them that their business isn't essential. But again, we're looking at the gray areas. We're not looking, you know, again.
I understand. And Dan, you and I are in agreement.
All right.
Here's
So
something put in there.
My
It
opinion
says
is,
if the governor comes, if it's determined 3 weeks down the road that we made an error, then that business has to be shut down.
if the government, sorry, if the state government says so.
Yes.
My feeling is we do what's right for our community until we're told not to.
I'm in agreement.
All right. So that's why I would like us to limit any state involvement to minimal.
That's fine. I think you should put a clause in there as part of number 3. If it's determined that, you know, the town acted in error, the business may be apt to be closed. Just some wording in there.
I mean, that could be on even the questionnaire when they file it, knowingly that
Okay.
if the state comes down and says, you know, they can't operate and the town operated outside of their jurisdiction, you know, so be it. So be it. Yeah.
I think the chance of that happening could be very remote, to be honest.
Yeah, I do as well. Unless, like I said, unless you've got me teeing off on the first hole at Bungay Brook and getting a photo, you know, a photo op to send to the governor.
And you can say you're in one socket there.
Then I'll get arrested because I'm not a Rhode Island resident.
Yeah.
If we're opening golf courses, Cindy and I want the first tee time.
Yes.
Spoken for.
So at this point, Jim, are we looking to adopt one of the options for the sake of this committee?
Yeah, so we certainly are, so that it gives the staff some guidance as to how to proceed with developing that process. So one of the options, and I want to remind anyone who's, you know, in the public that, you know, we can't authorize any openings of anything that's expressly stated as prohibited. So, I mean, I hate to be the buzzkill here, but you know, when they expressly state golf courses, unfortunately, it's expressly stated.
Hey, Jim, Mark has a quick comment here. Yep.
Jim, once we get all the applications and everything comes in, I would like the go-ahead from this committee to organize and put together the inspectional committee, or the inspection, I'm sorry, what do you call it here?
Yeah, you got it. Inspection team.
Yeah, so we can be ready and produce maybe a subcommittee just to produce a document that what we're going to look for. And so when we go into this business, it's not you know, an hour to 2 hours. It's a 15-20 minute inspection. We're in and out. We do our checklist, and that checklist should be submitted to this committee saying it's safe and sound, ready to go. As far as public safety goes, I would just like to see if I could seek permission to do that.
I think that's great.
Yeah, I think Mark, Bruce, and Tim should get together, form a checklist, and have that done by the end of the day.
Wow.
All right, by tomorrow morning.
All right.
I think that'd be good to attach to the application, right? So that they understand. You know,
Oh, that's a
we're
good
not
idea,
just
Cindy,
sort of
yeah.
willy-nilly.
I think you have enough information to start that, correct?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a complicated document because of the
No,
fact
just a
that,
checklist.
right, these are the things that we perform on a regular basis. It's just now that they might have adjusted because of COVID. They might have moved things around and could have blocked off an egress that now has to be opened up because you're going to have the public entering their buildings now. So these are some of the things that I'm thinking of. And also, I think Lee Rolls, the police department safety officer, should be involved also. And I know, Jim, you had police department in there.
Yeah, I talked to the police chief too. He was going to designate someone for your team.
Okay, great.
Okay, what I
If I can just get just a little blessing to go ahead forward and start reaching out to these people, I'd appreciate it.
All right, so let's, should we take a vote on that?
For which option or for?
Well, just for Mark to get together with the, to basically put together the.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
I think we're putting the cart before the horse a little bit, because we haven't really approved an option yet. So there's
Yeah,
nothing.
I apologize for that. I just,
For
I
him to
had
inspect.
and I didn't want to lose it.
Oh, I agree. So I think we need to approve an option,
All right, you're right, Bill.
when the approval to do the inspections.
Why don't we have, is there anyone else that wants to speak on or against any of the other two options? All right. Do we have a motion to adopt one of the options?
I make a motion that we adopt option 3.
We have a motion from Mrs. McNulty. Do we have a second to adopt option number
Second.
3? We have a second from Susan Ranieri. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 0. Perfect. All right, Bill. You ready for Mark to start doing some things here?
I'm all set.
All right. So I'll entertain a motion to ask Deputy Chief Poirier to put together his team for the inspection and enforcement checklist.
So moved.
We have a first from Mrs. McNulty. Do we have a second?
I second that.
We have a second from Mrs. Leclerc. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? 0. That was you who seconded it, right, Trish?
Yep.
See that? I'm getting good. I couldn't even see. I can recognize the voices at least. That's scary. All right, Jim. So we've cleared that hurdle. Where are we at next?
Yep, so excellent. So we have the order to proceed with local option 3. We have the inspection team. The next thing I just want to make clear is that, as we move forward with this, we're going to be reaching out directly to all the businesses, as well as just kind of putting a blanket statement out there that we want to see everyone's business plan. So we have communication or emails from everyone who has a certification with the town clerk. So we'll be sending an email blast out to them to say, how are you operating safely? So our next task is really how we're going to limit exposure moving forward. And so, again, it's not only the folks that are going to be opening up, but as Mark is saying, folks that are operating but have to move around tables or might upset a egress. So we're going to need to hear from pretty much each and every one of the businesses about how we're going to move strategically forward. So we'll start doing that communication too, because what's going to be key is, on day one when the governor gives us a lift, I understand it's going to be a phased approach from his end, but each one of those is going to have a handful of businesses, and so we're going to want to be able to get them up and running, on day one when the time allows. So we'll be doing that. In this document is some strategies to reduce the exposure. Again, this is a growing list, I'm sure. I would love to get the Board of Health's input on this list. This really comes from the governor's team and their recommendations. Beyond that, I know there's an appendix with a number of different things that we could look at a later point. But the last thing I wanted to really just talk about was creative ways in which our regulations could be amended temporarily. So I'm just going to stop sharing so we can have more open discussion here. So One thing that Dan, I know we had talked about offline is how we could assist restaurants. So you know, the story always goes, we're going to help small businesses, but unfortunately the restaurants are kind of out of luck. But I don't think that is necessarily the case. I think there is some opportunities there. And I know I shared a thought that I had about expanded opportunities in parking areas. I've actually seen this as a best practice in the South, which obviously they have a much longer winter with more favorable sunny days. But there could be opportunities here in New England, and I think for the restaurants each and every day that they could have somewhat more capacity than the minimal capacity probably that they'll be opened up with could help them. So I think if the committee is okay with it, I would like to explore an opportunity to allow for potential table service in parking areas that service restaurants. Obviously with the appropriate social distancing and limited capacity and all that, and we'll work with Board of Health and the inspection team on how that would get done.
So yeah, Jim, we had talked about this, and talking with Hillary, she reached out to the ABCC as far as what would need to be done as far as serving alcohol, and it would basically be an expansion of premises. So what we would normally do is post a hearing with 10 days notice, send out an abutters list, so the abutters could be available at that hearing. Once it comes before the board to either approve or disapprove it, if it gets approved, we then submit it to the ABCC and they would grant the request. So as of now, we're looking at probably a 10, well, at least a 10-day, a 10 to 20-day time frame to get that request in. I actually spoke with Rep. Soder, who's going to introduce legislation that to see if we can kind of expedite that process. That being said, I think what we should start doing, yesterday, is encouraging restaurants who think they may want to take advantage of this to submit applications. So if we can't, fast track it, at least we're ahead of the game that we can hold these hearings. And when the governor says, okay, boom, they're ready to operate with that new provision in place.
Excellent.
So I don't,
Fine.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Bill.
I think it's great. Jim, I just want to go back to one thing. I think we might have moved a little quickly. We approved option number 3. But I think part of option number 3, as well as the 2 other options, was enforcement. So I think that has to be part of option 3, as well as the strategies to deal with COVID-19.
Why, Mr. Twitty?
He's saying we need to have some detailed, I believe, Bill, in the detailed information on how we're going to enforce it.
Yes, I think that has to be part of option 3. Whatever we decide to do on 3, we need to let people know how it's being enforced.
I mean, to me, the enforcement would be the same as, what the current level of enforcement is. Bruce, how do we enforce things going on at Stop and Shop? Bruce?
Laid it out in the document.
Oh, hold on, I was looking for the button. Going from a laptop to a tablet gets confusing sometimes. But anyways, enforcement, you warn. If the warning doesn't work, then you fine. If the fine doesn't work, then you shut it down.
All right. So I guess, Bill, are you looking as far as what are we going to do to physically enforce that businesses are conducting business in the manner they state they're going to?
Yeah, if you look at option number 3, Dan.
Yep.
Below it, we have some paragraphs for enforcement.
And that's kind of the team that Mark's going to put together, isn't it? As far as that goes?
Yeah, yes, it is. And then if you follow down further, Mark's team will be the strategies. And some of these components, some of the applicants will have in place. So we've tried to make it easy for enforcement and for mitigation of COVID-19. So I think they should go with option 3.
Yep, and so Dan, I think I can incorporate that into all applications. Basically state that, you know, we'll have a blurb of enforcement will be by this team, and we're going to be looking for you to strategically implement all the strategies listed below as a minimum requirement. Obviously, there will be additional requirements that stem from the inspection team, from the Board of Health review, and whomever else.
And that process should makes Mark's job and other people's job a lot easier.
Good, Mark?
And if I may, I think that'll be part of Bruce's part of the team. When we
Yes.
walk into that facility to inspect, Bruce will be looking at the COVID-19 aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then further down the road, they're subjected to further inspections to make sure they're maintaining the COVID-19 mandates.
Mm-hmm. I'm in agreement.
I don't think if we're looking at, I guess for lack of a better term, to do sting operations to make sure they're maintaining, I think it's going to be, they're allowed to open up with these certain provisions, maintaining their local distancing or physical
Social.
distancing, local.
Social.
And upon receiving a complaint is when we'd go to investigate. Yeah, I'm sure, Bruce would love to stop in every business that's open every day to make sure everyone's wearing a mask. But I don't think that's feasible, but I think it would be, here's the list. You approve to operate in this manner. If we receive a complaint that you're not operating in this manner, it will be investigated. And if it's found to be that you did violate the terms of the provisions, then we would have to take action at that point. But I'm not sure that, like I said,
Yeah, again, you and I are in agreement, but I think what Bruce wants to do and Mark wants to do is before we green light a business, we want to make sure they put things in place they said they
Yes.
put.
That's the checklist.
Yep,
That's
yeah,
all.
exactly.
I don't want to do a sting.
No, okay. I thought you meant after they're operating, once they get,
No. I think before they're greenlit, we verify things are in place.
Yep, okay.
And then we get a complaint, we go back.
Yep, okay, so we're on the same page there then.
Dan, trust me though, if the people aren't doing what they're supposed to be, my phone rings off the hook. So
Oh, I know.
there's no need to do a sting because people are out there watching, and I'm getting the calls.
Right.
Several
And
times.
that'll be the portion where it says subject to further inspections.
Snitches get stitches. Just kidding. But no, so that, yeah, all right. So, Bill, so before opening the doors, it would almost be like a final inspection that Mark would do, Tim would do, which is going to incorporate the Board of Health before they get the green light to open their doors.
Right
Now,
now,
we would call in my business, a loss control inspection. Make sure everything's in place they said they would do.
Yep. And to make sure what they say they're going to do is feasible.
Yes.
right, and it'll be signed by the committee, the inspectional team and the owner of the operation.
Yep.
All right. Anything more on that?
Can I get back to the parking for a minute? Jim, do you need any help from the planning board on that?
Actually, I think that it would be good if the board made an affirmative vote to support, and I could draft up some language for the board's consideration. I think it will probably be a three-step process. The board's support, as Dan mentioned, the selectmen's approval of licenses, and I'm thinking of ways in which we could probably get something like a temporary event permit that we typically hand out for short-term events, but maybe it's a summer season event or something like that with the building.
You can have put on the agenda for next Thursday. We'll address it.
Yep, certainly will.
You just can't block filings.
All right. Jim, you want to continue on, or?
Yeah, the last thing on the agenda is simply review any of the submitted business plans. I know you did receive an email, and that was part of your package today. Before you, I don't know if you guys want to discuss it today, or if you want me to get the application out to them. It's up to you guys.
You know what?
Application go out?
I didn't see it.
Yeah. I didn't see it as well.
I didn't see that, Jim.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me see if I can pull that up. Let's see. So that it did go out late, like 9 o'clock last night. But once,
Pause one? No.
Was that from Dogs and Paws?
yeah, pause and close.
Same difference.
You want to know?
Yeah. You're right there.
1 second. Let me see if I can pull it up right now.
Put like a thing on your head.
Oh, I put it now.
There you are.
Looks like it was sent on yesterday, last night at 7
Okay.
PM to Karen. We're shut down.
Yeah. All right. Does everyone get a chance to read it?
So now, do they just have to fill out the application?
Well, I actually think this is a good thing that we can actually work with them to fill out the application. Once Mark has his checklist in place by noontime, he can make a visit. I think this is a perfect opportunity to kind of get the ball rolling and kind of form the procedure.
This will be a good trial and error for sure.
Yeah,
See how it all
exactly.
pans out.
I'm in agreement.
Yeah,
So
okay. So I'll reach back out to the business owner and state that we've drafted this application. Here it is. I'm happy to work with them on completing it.
Yeah.
And we could bring it back to the committee. You know, we're currently meeting once a week, but I'm happy to reach out to the committee if you guys want to do a meeting.
I'll tell you, if they can get this done and we can meet before next Tuesday, I am more than willing to, because like I said, I think, you know, trial by fire and get a feel for what we're going to be doing, because I think that would be, you know, I said, a perfect opportunity to kind of get our feet wet. And as a committee, understand things that we're looking for. So if you want to work with them, Jim, and we can get this, you know, sooner than later, again, personally, I'd be more than willing to, you know, take a half hour out of my busy day of not working to
get your dog shaved.
I did shave. They get my dog shaved. Maybe
Yeah, exactly.
No, I won't discuss what
let's
needs to get
just-
done with
yeah,
my dog.
okay. Thank you. Moving right along.
Moving along. But no, I think, honestly, I think it's a perfect opportunity to kind of get us through the flow chart, if you will. So,
I agree.
Okay. That's all I have for you guys today.
all right.
Once the
Can I
chart
ask
is
one
all
thing?
put together and everything,
Well,
can I see that in the application and everything? I just want to see what it looks like.
Yeah, do we have an application form? I mean, I'm just curious to see that as well.
Yep. So I just wanted to get the go ahead from the committee, and then I'll get that finalized. I'll try and get that out to you tonight to the whole.
Okay.
Awesome, thank you.
Jim,
Thank you.
as part of our communication, is it possible for us to use some of the signage in town to encourage businesses to apply?
Yeah. Certainly, we could talk to DPW or Dennis if Dennis is there.
I could change that signboard today if
Yeah, there you
if you want.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think, what's that?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and yeah, I think I definitely want to start reaching out to the business community, especially, like I said, restaurants, that if they want to submit, whether they think they're going to use it or not, maybe submit the application for the expansion of premises, and we can definitely get the ball rolling from the Board of Selectmen standpoint, planning board, and the state. If we can get ahead of it, and we don't require the legislation to fast track the expansion of premises for serving alcohol, I think we're that much better, because I mean, let's face it, restaurants aren't opening before June. I'm fairly confident. So if
But
we,
we'll have everything in place by then.
yeah, exactly.
And once the governor says yes, we're all set to go.
So, all right, anything in?
Jim, yeah, I have a question. So Jim, when you send us this application that people have to fill out, businesses have to fill out, are we going to have another meeting to approve it?
Yeah.
And then as soon as we get that, we can send it off to the businesses?
So it's up to you guys. If you want to have another meeting to formally approve the application, happy to do so. It could be a quick one at Zoom. We can put it together, pretty quickly.
Wait till next Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we should look at it before we,
Yeah.
as a board, before we
Mhm.
decide to just say, yeah, go ahead.
Yep. So it'd be a 48-hour notice.
Can you
So
post it today, Jim?
yeah, I could post it for 48 hours from now. That's perfect.
Yeah, let's do that.
And once the
Dana?
application, can we put that on the website so people can actually just download it and fill it out?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely.
All right. And does town council have to look at that application or no?
We would want to. I mean, it's up to you guys, but I typically get town council's input for all these.
Yeah, for sure. Especially with, yeah, definitely.
All right. Anyone out there in TV land have any comments or questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Bob.
So based on the applications being submitted to the town, what I like to call the governor's no friggin' way list, are they even going to be considered by our town?
I think that's outside our realm of power at this point.
That may be a red light.
Yeah.
But to Bob's point on that, I mean, we want to start engaging them now so that as they become a yellow or a green light, they're ready to go. And our team has already worked with them and they have all the parameters in place to get rolling.
Jim, it's my opinion though, can't they fill out the form and send it to the state to have that, an opinion on it?
You can absolutely do that.
I mean, somebody felt that they were off on the non-essential, but feel that they can always appeal it to the state with that form or link.
Yeah, that's right on the bottom of that essential business list that they can appeal to the state and how to do so.
Yeah, that's not a change.
But
There's a trickle-down thing that I think of, like the federal government saying we'll leave it up to the states. The states should be saying leave it up to the municipalities for enforcement. So, how can he have a list that says absolutely no? And I don't know. It's confusing, to say the least.
I agree, Bob. Let's keep the state out of it as much as possible. If they don't if a business applies for yellow status and this board doesn't recommend it and they want to appeal to the state, that's certainly their right to do so. But, like I said, I'd like to keep it all in-house as much as possible.
All right. Thanks.
And there's nothing to prohibit a red lit company to apply.
Right.
Once the change are ready to go.
Just one comment. When the governor comes out next Tuesday and releases a bunch of the restrictions, which we expect, I think we had better be ready to move quickly, because the last thing we want to do is be an impediment to their getting open. And that's my biggest concern, that we create a bunch of red tapes. And next week, the governor says, all right, I'm moving restrictions on these businesses. And we're saying, whoa, we need to be ready to act.
I think if the governor opens up the business, they don't even have to come to this committee.
Well,
But the only thing that they will is for Mark's team to be able to go out there and make sure. But I mean, again, we'll be able to work with each one of these businesses right away. I mean, I know I'm signing up Mark for a lot, but I think
that's why we make the checklist, Jim. They're only 5 to 10 minute inspections. Yep. We could bang out 20 of them in a half a day.
Yeah, and I liken this to like the apartments. I mean, you guys do this already.
Well, that's where I got the idea from Tim and his apartment inspections. So.
Yep.
Yeah, we can adapt easily with this burger.
Hold on, Tim is standing over my shoulder. He's got a comment.
So, inspections, how many a day?
1 million.
Yeah, we,
All right, so, in the effort to expedite this,
Most of these people are in the next
Yeah.
meeting too.
I know there's a lot of people that have an 11:30 meeting that was going on 3 minutes ago. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 0. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, guys.
See you guys.
It's there.